Yes, it is a new day in time. It's Tuesday and it's 8 p.m. and it's time for the Real Money Coach. I am here and I'm excited that we are coming at you live. Listen, we've been doing this for 18 months. And to be honest, you guys, I'm getting used to this Tuesday thing, right? I'm still getting used to it. You might be too. So let me tell you this. Please put in the chat box where you are watching from, where you're listening from, where you are on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you are. Please put it in the chat box so that we can say hello to you as you watch the Real Money Coach on this Tuesday evening. I can't believe that today is December 14th. That means we're halfway through the year or through the month of the last month of the year, right? So we got only a couple weeks left and we will be in 2022. 2022. I can't believe it's coming. Vixen, all the way from Tampa Bay, Florida. Thank you for being here. April McCants, how are you? Good to see you. Hope you are doing well. Listen, everybody, you're getting used to the Tuesday thing. I haven't seen some of you in a while. It's good to see you. Know that you're doing okay. It's an awesome time. Happy Tuesday to my good friend, client, Mama Alice Martin. Alice Martin, good to have you. Glad that you are here with us as well. So wherever you are watching from, calling in from, we want to hear from you. And listen, we have some information that we're going to share with you this evening about things that you need to be thinking about when doing a financial wellness check. So as we're going into the end of the year and we're thinking about goals for 2022, we want to give you a couple things to think about, put on your mind. And so myself, along with the co-host, Mrs. Michelle Mitchell, we are going to share some great information with you. So let's bring her on now. Michelle, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Tony. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. I just want to know one thing. I just want to know actually, I talked to someone in Kalamazoo earlier today,
Okay.
potential client, and she said it's cold. Well, do I need to bring my winter coat next week? I mean, can I bring
Yes.
my jacket or I better bring my
You
winter coat?
you better bring your winter coat and you better bring some boots just in case.
Oh man. Oh man. So as you guys can hear, I will be in Kalamazoo, Michigan next Tuesday.
Yeah.
We have a big event coming up, big family event coming up. And so my wife and I will be there with Michelle and her husband, her son, and her soon to be daughter-in-law and the whole family. And so on next Tuesday night, I would tell you that Real Money Coach Live will be coming from Michelle's living room, but that's not the case. It's not the case. So Marlon Smith will be hosting next week, and we have Valerie Rhodes. She's a CPA, and they're going to be talking about the things that you need to be doing to prepare for tax season. Listen, so you got a couple weeks to get that stuff organized, get it ready so that you can take it to your CPA, get your taxes done. So that's going to be the topic for next week. And
Awesome.
then the lineup coming up in January is simply amazing, right? We have Dr. Inga. She's going to come in and talk about financing or getting money to start your business, startup business, capital, those type of things, access to
Oh,
capital.
nice.
We have Janice Leak. She's known as the Rainmaker. She's going to come on and she's going to be talking about cryptocurrency. We have Pastor Casey Kimbrough. He's going to be on. He's going to be talking about what he's doing in cryptocurrency space. And then we have a gentleman that's going to come on and he's going to talk about, now that you're making all that money in crypto and in all that, how do you pay taxes on it? So he's going to finish the month up with us and talking about taxes. And then we move into February. And February is going to be a great month, book launch,
Yeah.
all that good stuff. So a lot of great things happening. Hope you all will be a part of it. So I
Awesome.
was I was just talking to Michelle earlier, y'all, about um, and you can listen to this on the iHeartRadio show on Friday at 5 p.m. So let me just do that promo one more
Yeah.
time, right?
Go ahead. Go
iHeartRadio, WDRB Media, right? So if you go to iHeart, you download the app. Friday at 5 p.m. every Friday is my iHeartRadio show. Just search for WDRB Media at 5 p.m. Eastern, and you can get it. And I'll be talking a little bit. I do these sections of the show. The first one is what I call real money news. So in the real money news portion, I'm going to be talking about Forbes' list of the most powerful women. So they have their 2001 most powerful women in the world. And there's going to be some names that you recognize on the list. There's going to be some names that you don't. So you want to check it out. Also, I'm sure you can Google it and see that list. So we're going to talk about that. And the guest is going to be a gentleman named Corey Vu. And some of you may remember Corey being on our show, but kind of inspiring, just kind of some of the things he's been through. So that's what's coming up for the rest of the week. So
Awesome.
a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
So listen, Michelle,
Yeah.
yesterday yesterday. Getting my days mixed up. Today's Tuesday.
Today is
That was
Tuesday.
Monday. That was Monday.
Right.
Monday, I did a little thing about financial wellness
Hmm.
and how you should have a financial wellness checkup.
Yep.
So what are some of the things? And what I wanted to do today was talk about some of the things that you need to kind of be on your checklist for your financial wellness checkup.
Hmm.
And so we thought we'd share some of those things with our audience tonight and
Awesome.
see if we can add a little bit to it. I'm sure you're going to add some nuggets of wisdom as
I'm
we do
sure.
that. What you laughing at?
Nothing. I'm sure.
I'm like, there's somebody
Something.
making faces at you. Where my boy at? Where my boy Tony
Oh,
Mitchell at?
I don't know where yet. He may have went upstairs.
He might went upstairs. He's like, oh, the show's on. That sounds like Lisa. Like, I'll go upstairs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But she does have the show on, y'all. My wife does watch the show every week, y'all. I'm telling you, because she'll tell me at the end of the show what she thought about it. Like, so she gives us that evaluation. So, all right, Michelle, let's jump into it.
All right. Let's go.
So the first thing that I had on was financial psychology.
Yes.
So I believe that if you're going to do a checkup, you got to start from the head up.
That's right.
Right. And so, when you do financial psychology, a couple points that I made there was you got, what's your money mindset?
Mm-hmm.
And what are your goals? What goals do you have? We've talked often about SMART goals. And then we talked about a little bit of MKO, and then we have disc and dollars. So MKO is a more knowledgeable person.
Yeah.
So a more knowledgeable person, and really the idea there is who are you listening to? Who's in your head when it comes to money? And so as we kind of look at this before we go on to the next one, Chris, you can take that one down. But what are some of the more knowledgeable others? But I have a question for the people listening, and we always ask this in a lot of our classes: is who were the money influencers in your life? Where did you learn about money? And
Yep.
I'd love to get some of the folks who are listening to put it in the chat box. Who was that money influencer? Where did you first learn about money? Who taught you about money? So, what about you, Michelle?
One of the first things I ask people is, when was your first recognition of money? And what was the dynamic going on at the time when you were a kid? Because your money mindset started as a kid. So what was going on that made you realize, oh, this thing, coin, bill, has value, and I can exchange this thing for something I want or need, right? So
Mm.
what was going on when you finally recognized this thing has value?
That it has value.
Yeah.
So I often talk about that. My dad, he worked in a factory, for
Mhm.
38 years. And back then they got a paper check,
Mhm.
right? You get a
Mhm.
paper check on
Yep.
Friday. He would stop at the bank on the way home, cash that check, bring the cash home.
Mhm.
He'd count out every single bit of that cash, put it on the table, and then slide it over to my mom, and she did whatever she did with it. Right.
Yep. Mhm.
That's my first recollection of money.
Yeah.
And my first really thought of earning money
Mm.
um, was we had this factory that was down the road from us. And so, they made parts out of aluminum,
Mhm.
and in the scraps would get caught up in like this dirt, and
Mhm.
then they would go dump that dirt out, and
Mm.
we would go and pick the scrap aluminum out of that dirt
Wow.
and put it in a bucket. And I
Mhm.
remember we would get $10 for every like 10-gallon bucket of
Wow.
aluminum that you could pick up out that you could find in that dirt.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was some cheap labor.
That was some deep labor. But hey, back there when I mean,
Yeah.
$10,
$10
I
was a lot.
mean, that was a
Yeah,
lot of money,
it was.
back then. I mean,
Mhm.
and you if you were good, you could pick, you might get you 2 or 3 buckets a day,
Right,
if you
right.
were, good. And of course, you want them big chunks of
Yeah,
aluminum because it take more room up in the bucket. So
right. Exactly.
yeah, and then
Right.
so what about you? What was your first
My
job?
m my first, like, job was delivering papers. I mean, I
Mm,
probably was in the 3rd or 4th grade. Me and my brother, every Monday, we would deliver the trade line,
mm.
and I think we made $2.50 for delivering the trade line in the neighborhood. So they would drop off the bundle, we would have to roll them. So when they dropped it off, my mom expected us when we got home from school to roll our bundles. So when she came home from work, we put them in the car and she took us around the neighborhood and we dropped them off.
So you throw them out the window or
Oh
the
no,
car, or how?
no, my mama wouldn't let us do that. We
Okay.
had to walk to everybody's house. We had to walk to everybody's house. And we did that every Monday for, to me, it felt like years. I don't know how long we actually did it, but it was a long time. Every Monday.
Everyone, you
Yeah.
and
Me and
Derek,
Darnell.
Darnell,
Darnell. Mhm.
Darnell. All right,
Yep.
awesome.
Yep. Every
So,
Monday.
so when you're doing your financial wellness checkup, you want to look at some of those things.
Mhm.
What's your history, and I think the most important thing is your mindset going
Yes.
into the new year.
Mhm.
And as we mentioned, what are your goals? What are
Yep.
your goals? Setting new goals and those type of things. So I don't know what that's all about. All right. So the next one on the list is, I think one of the things that we want to do when we're doing our financial checkup is we want to, let's see, I'm making sure, do what I'm supposed to do. All right. So we want to look at our budget and our spending plan.
Mm.
What is our budget and our spending plan? Um, what's going on?
I'm looking at the comment.
What?
Ke
Oh,
Kendra.
Kendra said y'all only deliver the paper once a week. She's like,
Well,
what are
the
you
trade
talking about?
line was like people selling stuff. So it
Oh,
was
okay.
once a week. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So it wasn't like
It
a
wasn't like a
newspaper.
newspaper. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So I, I can't see a thing here. I don't know what's going on. All
Oh.
right. All I can see is my screen where we're talking about savings, expenses,
Oh.
and budgeting. So that's really one of the things that we want to check. We want to talk about wants versus needs.
Mm-hmm.
I think tracking your spending is another part of that as well. Creating a spending plan.
Mm-hmm.
We often say if you don't tell your money where to go,
Yeah,
it'll go where it wants to go,
it will.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
then automate your plan so
Mm-hmm.
that you are not just relying just on, I got to remember to pay this bill, I got to remember to pay that bill. So if you actually would do that and actually automate it so that those things happen automatically, I think that could be a good way to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anything you
Well,
would add?
well, one of the things I like to do is look back at where I've come from. So take a look back so you can look forward. Where and ask yourself where did I you know may have misstepped throughout the year or fallen off of what my goal was for the year, so that I can you know think about those pitfalls and how I can put systems in place, like you're saying, the automated payments. How can I put systems in place so that I am consistent in this, so that I'm consistent in executing what my plan is.
So you're really taking a snapshot. You're looking in the rearview mirror and said, okay,
Mm-hmm.
where did I get off track?
Right.
And how do I make sure that doesn't happen to me next year
Again.
again?
Mm-hmm.
Again.
Yeah. And that's the shift in the mindset thing too, because you got to do something that's going to help you stay on track for what you want. Also, there may be people that things went great, you know, in the last year. So what can you do to improve upon that? So you got to kind of do both.
Okay. So
Yeah.
where can I go? What can I do?
Mhm.
Um, and so that again, I think I keep going back to goals,
Mhm.
right? So if you don't have your goals written down,
Mhm.
then how are you going to know? Same thing with your
Right.
budget, right? Same thing with your spending plan. If you don't have it written down, then how are you going to get there?
Yeah, exactly. And then how many people, tell me in the chat, if you write out your goals like at the beginning of the year, do you check in on them like monthly, quarterly, weekly? Like how often do you review them, or do you just write them down and forget it?
Man, where did I put
Yeah,
that?
where I put that? I don't know what book I put that in. I know I wrote it down.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I think when we think about that and we think about measuring and we think
Mhm.
about tracking, regardless if we're talking about our money, if we're talking
Mhm.
about other goals, if we're talking about it might be weight loss, it might be
Yeah.
exercise, it could be anything that requires some discipline.
Mhm.
I think writing it down and going back and reviewing it, saying
Yep.
where you are and those type of things, I think that's important.
Yeah. It is.
And so April says in the track, need to track and reset more often.
Yes.
Let's talk about reset. I think that's
Yeah.
a great thing that April brought up. What
Mhm.
how do how how do you reset? And I think sometimes, let me just say this before you answer that. I think sometimes we beat up on ourselves,
Mhm.
and some of that could depend on your personality,
Yeah.
right? So you might be someone who's a highly compliant person,
Mhm.
a C on the spectrum, right?
Right.
On
Mhm.
the DISC spectrum.
Mhm.
And if things get a little off, you can tend to beat up on yourself.
Right.
And so what was your advice for someone who does that and how not to beat up on themselves?
Yeah. So along the way, you should be celebrating your little wins, not just the major ones, right? So the small things like, you know, as it relates to your money, like keeping track of all of your receipts in one place. Like that's a small little thing, right?
It's a small win, right? It
It's
could
a
be a
small
small
win.
win, but it can
Yeah,
have a huge impact.
it can have a huge impact. So celebrate that. Like I did that this week. And if you have an accountability partner, whether it's a girlfriend, your spouse, your best
Business
friend,
partners.
your business partner, whoever it is, if you share that with them, they can then remind you when you're getting down on yourself. But remember back, for a whole quarter, you saved all your receipts. Look, they in a pile right there. Like, what happened? So they can remind you of the things that you've accomplished over time because we do tend to forget. But I like to write it down, especially when I review my goals every week. I
Mhm.
write down what my win was for the week
Well,
every week.
and the thing about it is, I think there's, and I was talking to someone today, and we were talking about like they like apps, right?
Hmm.
So they like the tracking apps, the
Hmm.
budgeting apps. But we were talking about there's something about writing it down.
Yes.
It's something about when I write down that goal, handwrite it,
Hmm.
um, and I think um, that's a lost art kind of in
Yes.
our society now. I mean,
Yeah.
getting a handwritten note from someone. I mean,
Right.
that means something
Yeah.
versus send me a text message,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
Yesterday was my birthday. So we went out to dinner.
yeah. Happy birthday, by the
Thank
way.
you. Thank you.
And
Thank
hey, did you check? Did you see? Did you got a couple birthday shout outs in the Real Money Coach
you.
community on
I'm gonna have to go on.
Facebook?
I haven't been on Facebook today, so I have
Okay, yeah, you got a couple shout outs
to.
in the Real
Thank
Money Coach community.
you.
So,
Anyway, when we came back from dinner, we were sitting around talking, and my future daughter-in-law, next week, she's gonna be my daughter-in-law, and she was asking me about budgeting and what budgeting app I liked. And she was naming off a couple that she knew, and I'm like, budgeting apps are great. But if you haven't used pencil and paper first,
mm,
sometimes the technology of the app and the learning curve of the app will cause you not to use it. So just a simple piece of paper and you write it down and get in a habit of reviewing it on pencil and paper, and then you can move it to the app. Especially people who are challenged with technology, it can
hmm
help you. Just get in a routine of writing on pencil and paper first and then move into
and then transfer
an
it.
app. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because that
that's
learning
good.
curve sometimes like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And she didn't use the app because she didn't realize how she could connect her bank account.
Right.
So she was stalled,
So if you develop the habit
Right.
kind of manually, right, and
Manually.
then you can do the automation. So
Yeah.
you mentioned something just a second ago that brings me up to my third point that I made, and actually, Chris can show that loans and debt.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we're doing our checkup, we need to look at where are we in terms of loans and debt.
Mm-hmm.
And we often talk about good debt, bad debt,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's one of the things that we talk about. And then debt elimination, the two primary methods for debt elimination being the snowball method
Mm-hmm.
and the avalanche method.
Yes.
And what really made me think about this is that you spoke about small wins,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why a lot of people actually like the fact of using the avalanche method
Mm-hmm.
because you have, or not the avalanche, the snowball,
Snowball. Mm-hmm.
because you have these wins along the way that actually help you. So snowball method,
Mm-hmm.
Of course, is that you pay the smallest debt first,
Yep.
and then after the smallest debt is paid, then you actually move on to the next debt.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get a chance to celebrate the victory of paying that smallest debt off before moving on to the next debt.
Right. Yeah.
And avalanche method is you pay the highest interest rate first. So it's always interesting to see in the chat when we ask people which method do you prefer? Do you prefer the snowball method or do you prefer the avalanche method? So what about you, Michelle?
I prefer the snowball method because you can have those quick wins, because sometimes people let bills go into collections and they're very small amounts, you know,
Mm,
or, they just have a little bit here and a little bit there, but it just seems so overwhelming because you got so many different things. But in the snowball method, once you pay off that first one and whatever money you were using in your budget to pay that small one off, you can then roll it into the next one. That's why it's a snowball. It gets bigger. The payments actually get bigger and bigger as you go, as you pay them off. And it allows you to have those small wins all along the way instead of it feeling like such a huge, insurmountable chore to get out of debt.
right, because the reality is this is that if you're using the avalanche method, you're taking the biggest
Mm-hmm.
interest rate. Now that may also be your biggest
Biggest
loan.
balance, right? Mm-hmm.
And so you may not really get the chance to have that moral victory
Mm-hmm.
until much later down the road.
Now you can move from the snowball method to the avalanche method once you get to a certain point in your debt payoff, you
Hmm.
know, and then it makes sense to kind of flip it because you're in a habit now. You're in a habit
Right.
of getting these wins. So now just to knock out off a big one, that would be feel like
That
more
could,
of an accomplishment,
that could be
right?
a real boost. That could
Yeah.
be a real
Yeah.
boost. So as you're doing your financial wellness checkup, I think you need to make a list of all your debts
Mhm.
and know where you're at, and then decide which method you want to tackle.
Yeah.
Do you want snowball or you want avalanche?
Mhm.
And so, and then we move on to our next item, which is your credit profile.
Mhm.
So, obviously, credit affects a lot of different things. And, I think it's important to understand how your credit score is determined.
Mhm.
Get a copy of your credit report, review it. You need to be doing that at least annually, if
Yes.
not more often.
Yes.
Now, of course, we were talking about apps. You got things like Credit Karma. You got some other
Mhm.
things out there that can monitor your credit. But I
Mhm.
think sometimes it's a good idea just to get the old fashioned paper copy of your
That's
credit
right.
report and go through it and see how they're reporting, how many.
Mhm.
When you actually look at your credit report and the color codings and you know how many things were paid on time versus how many things weren't, or and so you can really get a good snapshot of it. I think again it's one of those things where getting that paper copy in your hands at least once a year could be very beneficial.
I agree. And I would also like to give a shout out to the Real Money Coach credit. I don't know what she call herself, but whatever.
TRMC credit repair.
Credit repair. Listen, worth every penny because she helps walk you through the process,
Hmm.
and you can make faster um you can make faster progress when you have a more knowledgeable person helping you. That's going back to your finding knowledgeable people, right?
Right.
And that's just one of the ways. And if that's an issue for you, I highly suggest that you contact the Real Money Coach Credit Repair and she will help you because she's real. She know what she doing.
She do. She know what she's doing.
She does.
Now y'all gonna have to be real special because she's in school and all this stuff. So y'all might have to have some inside help getting her hired now. But the point is getting with someone that
Mhm.
knows the credit, knows
Yeah.
how to do it and all those types of things.
They
And so
speak the language of the credit bureaus so that the credit bureaus will do what you want them to do.
right. And it goes back to we said more knowledgeable others,
Mhm.
but it also goes back to um the Bible says there's
Mhm.
wisdom in a multitude of
Of
counselors.
counselors, absolutely.
And so, we have different people for different aspects of our physical health, right? I
Mhm.
don't go to the podiatrist when I have an issue with my heart, right?
Mhm.
I go to a cardiologist. And
Mhm.
so making sure that we go to those specialists, even in our financial wellness,
Mhm.
in our financial health, making sure we seek out those people that can help us. And now we are the general practitioner. We're your family doctor at the Real Money Coach, right? We might send you to some experts, but just making sure you seek out those expert opinions and stuff.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about risk management and insurance. Now, when I was going over this with everyone in the call yesterday, it was about 100 people on the call. Um, I brought this up from the standpoint of understanding that a large portion of our budget goes towards insurance stuff, right?
Mhm.
When you think about your health insurance through work, your dental insurance, your vision, and then we throw in our car insurance, our homeowners insurance, renters insurance. Insurance ends up being a big chunk of our budget,
Mhm.
even if you're retired and you're getting Medicare, that Medicare insurance that comes out of your check, it's a big chunk, right?
Mhm.
And it's going up to about $170 this year. So it is a big part of our budget. And so we need to every year, you need to sit down with your insurance professional and look at those things. You need to look at your auto and, are your coverage limits where they need to be? What about your deductibles? Are your deductibles, can you save money by increasing your deductible, or or your home? And just speaking of home insurance, just want to send our prayers to the folks in Kentucky and the other 8 states that were involved in the tornadoes. But if when the tornadoes come, it's too late to check and make sure you got the proper coverage.
Right.
So, and the other thing that I'm a proponent of is that you can't insure everything. There's some risk that you have to kind of participate in.
Yes.
Otherwise, and people used to use this term with me all the time. I'm insurance poor. Well, okay, whatever that means, but make sure that carry your deductibles. I mean,
Mhm.
today, if you had a $250 deductible on your home, you're going to pay a whole lot more insurance for as often as probably you have a claim,
Right.
versus being at 1,000 or even 2,000 and some of those types of things. And that again comes to the budgeting. Do you
Yes.
have emergency savings set aside and that type of thing? So I think
Yep.
that insurance piece is huge. And also this time of year, like I've mentioned before, just renters having renters insurance, because we see trees catch on fire, people's
Yep.
homes get broken in. And sometimes we don't think about it because it may not be required by our landlord, is to have renters insurance.
Right.
Certainly your mortgage company is going to make sure that you have it for your house if you have a mortgage. But if your home is paid off, you got to make sure you have those things in place.
Yeah. Like I had something happen to me today. I need to check my auto insurance because I was driving on the highway and a big rock hit my brand new car and broke my windshield.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So did it shatter, or
It
did
didn't
it?
shatter, but it's like about that big on my brand new car.
Oh yeah. So you got to look at those things, and
Right.
your comprehensive coverage,
Mhm.
right? So that's non-collision type stuff.
Yep.
Then your collision coverages, your liability coverages, and all those type of things.
And then when should you do a claim and when should you not do a claim? Should you self-fund that? Because if it can be repaired and not replaced, maybe I self-fund it and not claim it. You know what I mean?
Well, and when you're looking at those type of things too, you also want to, um, does it affect my rate?
Right.
That's the main thing. Does it
Yes.
affect my coverage? Does it
Mhm.
affect my rate? If it's a comprehensive claim and it doesn't affect my rate, that could be different versus a collision.
Right.
And then whether you're at no fault state versus other state.
Right.
And
And
the thing,
just some of these terms you're speaking of, Tony, maybe some of the audience members don't even know what these terms are. But yet we renew our insurance every year, you know?
yeah,
Thank
right.
you, April. Yes, I'm okay. It was just a rock, but it made me mad.
Right, right.
You
But
know?
thank God. And
Yeah,
well, and I won't put out there on blast, but even trees falling on your house and,
right.
those type of things, and just having the proper insurance there.
Mhm.
And thank God when some of those things happen that we don't get damaged, we don't have any loss of life.
Right,
But when the major things do happen, we do want to make sure that we are properly insured and covered, and that that we're not at a financial loss.
right.
And I think that's why one of the things too we always talk about is make sure that you have insurance.
Mhm.
Because if you don't owe anything on your car, you can have just liability coverages for if
Right.
you damage someone else's
Mhm.
person or other one's belongings, but there's no coverage for your vehicle.
Right.
But then you have an accident,
Yep.
so all those things are part of the equation that we need to really take a look at. And this to me is one of the biggest areas that we need to look at.
Yeah. It's
All
true.
right. So then moving on to personal retirement plans, right?
Mm.
So obviously retirement is a huge part of our personal financial plan. And the questions that I pose are you saving enough for retirement? How will Social Security impact your retirement? What about taxes on your retirement? How are you doing with your 401k, 403b, TSP, if you're a federal employee, IRA, Roth IRAs, pensions, annuities? So, um, so those are things that we need to talk about. Now, you chuckled a little bit when I mentioned the word Social Security.
Oh, because I don't believe we like us, we probably won't get it, but,
Well, and
we
and this
might not.
this is what the Congressional Budget Office said.
Mhm.
In September, they announced that by the year 2034, that the Social Security Trust Fund will be out of money,
Mhm.
bankrupt. And now that's the headline. That's what everybody reads. The subheading under that is that this is a year sooner than we thought. Only 1 year sooner than we thought, and we blame that on COVID. The
Right.
reality is this. The reality is that Social Security system was never designed to be our primary source of retirement
Oh,
funds.
right.
And for most people, it is. And
Mhm.
at the time Social Security was started, there was something like, for every worker that was, or every retiree that was drawing Social Security, there was like 40 workers. Today, it's
Right.
more like 4 workers for everyone. And in the fact that we have baby boomers that are retiring and living longer.
Mhm.
So you got to think about it. In when FDR instituted Social Security, you started drawing your Social Security at age 65.
Right.
Life expectancy was 67, right?
Right.
Now you start drawing Social Security at 65, you might live to 85,
Yeah.
90,
Mhm.
95. You may have 20, 30 years that you're drawing the Social Security. And it
Mhm.
really wasn't designed to handle that type of impact.
Right.
Now, personally, I believe that Social Security will be there in some form. But for years, and I went back all the way to 2013, they were warning us that by a certain year that Social Security would only be paying like 75% of the benefits it owes. So it would
Mhm.
basically be paying 75 cents on a dollar of benefits.
Right.
And so personally, I believe that they'll bail the Social Security system out. But then that moves us to the next question.
Yep.
The bailout is going to come from
Gotta be paid for, right?
got to be paid for.
So where you get that money from?
Well, what does our government sell?
Mhm.
What does our government manufacture?
Right.
Basically nothing, right?
Nothing.
So how do they raise revenue? It's
Taxes.
taxes.
Mhm.
And so we have to really be thinking about the impact of taxes on our retirement.
Mhm.
And to me, that's like, you know how they say when you go for your physical that what do they say? Blood pressure is the silent killer, right?
Right.
I
Mhm.
believe taxes in retirement is the silent killer
Yeah.
because there's so many people, and I explain like this, Michelle. When you are young, you got your kids, you know, you're in school, you got a mortgage, you're working, you're
Mhm.
doing all this, and we're putting all this money aside for retirement because they're telling us we can save on taxes. And it's a deferment on taxes.
Mhm.
So if I am married, filing joint, I got 4 kids running around, I'm claiming them on my taxes, I'm able to write off my mortgage interest and da 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 da. At that point, I'm setting money aside.
Mhm.
So I'm at the lowest tax bracket probably I'm going to be in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm older and my golden years, my golden sneakers, right? I'm a little older. I might be widowed or
Mhm.
widower.
Mhm.
So I don't have any dependent children at home anymore.
Mhm.
My house may be paid off or near paid off. So I've gone from setting money aside at the lowest tax bracket, but now when I have to claim it, I'm now in the highest tax bracket.
Mhm.
And that's the lesson that many people don't get. And I really talk about this in the book too when it comes out, about how we need to be thinking about these things so that we don't end up in that position. And then once we're there, though, I mean, we just have to kind of do our best to manage that whole situation.
Right. Yeah.
So, so that's why some of these things that we list, 401k, 403b, TSP, IRAs, may not always be the best instrument
Mhm.
to actually save for retirement.
Yeah.
And here's the thing that I get people on is this, especially business owners. Business owners like, I'm making all this money. I need, and what do their tax person tell them to do? Or say, well, you need more write-offs. You need to start a retirement plan. Okay,
Mhm.
if I'm at let's just say I'm at a 30% tax bracket, which is high. Let's say
Mhm.
25% tax bracket. I need a write-off.
Mhm.
So I go and I start a retirement plan. Let me put 10 grand in it. Now, I don't save 10 grand on my taxes.
No.
I only save my tax rate times that 10 grand.
Right.
So if I put in 10,000 into a retirement plan, it may save me 2,500 on my tax bill,
Right.
but I spent 10,000. That's
10,000.
and so we have to just, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but just realize what's happening.
Right.
That's like if you buy if you go buy a TV that's on sale because it's 25% off, and you're like, man, this TV was 1,000. I saved 25%. I saved 250. No, you really spent $750.
Right.
So those are just some of the things. But yeah, the main thing here, the main lesson in terms of the wellness checkup is making sure that you are that you're planning. That's the biggest thing, is make sure you're planning.
Yes.
And again, I just want to mention next week, Valerie Rhodes will be on the show with Marlon. We're going to be talking about taxes and things that you need to be doing to prepare for tax season. All right. And then we get into investments. Taking a look at your investments. Investing can be complex, but you need to look at your risk. You need to look at your diversification, consistency, and all those things. And the first question I had there, Michelle, is why did you invest in the first place?
Right.
Did you do it because that's what they told you to do
They
at work?
told you to do?
They told you to do? Who's they, right?
Who is they?
Right. So why did you invest? I always ask 3 questions. What do you want? Where did this money come from? What do you want the money to do? And when do you want to do it? In other words, we got to discover your why.
Yes. We
got to discover your why in investing. And so when you're doing your financial checkup, go back and ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is the end game? What is the long game? Is this for a short term or is it for a long term? What about your risk? When I'm younger, am I willing to take more risk than I am when I'm a little older? I never did do roller coasters. I don't like up and down. I never have. And I have to tell y'all, the listeners, the story of when my wife and Michelle tricked me onto a roller coaster in California.
Did Michelle go on the roller coaster?
I don't know if y'all was on it or not, but we were all, do you remember that we were all standing in line, we was talking, and I didn't do roller coasters. They knew I didn't do roller coasters. So I'm just running my mouth, we're talking, and then next thing, I'm thinking we're getting on this train ride, and they put me on this roller coaster, y'all. I lost my mind. I screamed like a girl, a baby, everything else, because I don't do roller coasters. We were in California at the time. We were students at Western.
Right.
Anyway, I digress. But I don't like roller coasters. I don't like my money going up and down. And so, what's your personal risk tolerance?
Yeah.
And your risk tolerance could be different for different things. And so, keeping that in mind.
Yeah.
And then when we're talking diversification, most people are thinking about risk, but I challenge people to think about not just risk, but how is it going to be treated as far as taxes? You guys heard me talk about 3 buckets of money. There's a tax-free bucket, there's a tax-deferred bucket, and a tax-free bucket. Make sure that you're diversified in all 3 buckets of money.
Right.
And then the other one is income, because there are vehicles that are great for short-term income, they're kind of that mid-range, and then long-term income. And as we're living longer, we want to make sure that we don't outlive our money. And so when we think about being diversified, make sure you're really looking at those 3 areas. And then, Michelle, this is to accountant's heart. What is your net worth?
Right.
Is your net worth increasing or is it decreasing? I think that's a good measurement to take every year.
That's a good measurement to take on a monthly basis.
Yeah. And so, Michelle, what is the difference between net income and net worth?
The difference between net income is taking your income and deducting all your expenses. That at the bottom line, the difference is your net income. So for people who are working, you have your gross salary, Once you take out all your taxes, then you have your net income. But your net worth is taking all of your assets minus all of your debt balances to get your net worth.
Right.
So,
So it's not necessarily about cash flow with the
no,
net worth, where
mm-mm,
your net income is more about cash flow.
cash
Net
flow.
worth is if I sold everything I own
Yep.
and paid everybody that I owe, what do I have left?
Right. So
Yeah.
your net worth is like your balance sheet,
Yeah.
and your net income is your profit and loss.
Let me see. I'm going to see if I can find this real quick. There was someone that sent me an article that we are actually using, and it talked about that the average net worth for the median, income for Black families is
Hmm.
really projected to be at zero.
Right.
Um, that if we continue the way we're going, the average net worth of a Black family is going to be nearing zero, and
Hmm.
that's a scary thought. And so we want to pay attention to what is our net worth. I can't even find it now, but we want to really pay attention to what is our net worth.
Right.
I think that's a very important number.
Hmm.
All right. So our final thing that we think ought to be part of your checkup is estate planning. Estate planning, right?
Yes.
And estate planning includes a lot of things like we have here on the screen. And I know, shout out to Alice Martin. She's when we asked a couple weeks ago, what type of topics, and one of the things she mentioned was trust.
Hmm.
And so I think as we get into 2022, we'll spend a month talking about estate planning, in particular the trust. So we'll have attorneys come on, we'll have some trust people come on, talking about this estate planning issue. Um, what you're looking at here is, just some of those things that are part of the estate planning process.
Yeah.
And so, having a will, you know, having a power of attorney, and, a power of attorney for your financial, and also having a power of attorney for your health.
Yeah. Medical. Hmm.
Okay. So you got medical directives, beneficiary directives, trust, life insurance, making sure your records are organized. All those types of things are very important part of this estate planning process.
Yeah.
Um,
Tony, I can't remember. It was in the last week. I was attending something and someone was talking about estate planning. And she said people are misconceived about estate planning. They think it's only for rich people. And
yeah,
she wants it to be for everyone. Everyone needs to plan their estate. And this is why, because you have all of these components and they all affect your family. Your
that's
will, your power of attorney, your medical directive, your living trust, your life insurance, all of that affects your family. So every family needs to estate plan, not just rich families.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And when you think about some of these things, like, if you don't, a will, for example, a will is kind of that basic estate planning, and it
Hmm.
tells the probate court what to do.
Hmm.
It it
Right.
it tells the probate court, this is what I want to happen to my stuff,
Hmm.
right? And a higher level than that is a trust.
Hmm.
And with a trust, it's not, the probate court stays, they're out of it, right?
Hmm.
Because it's ironclad.
Yeah.
And so you have your trust. And then power of attorney. So if something happens to you, then who's going to pay your bills? Who's going to write the check? Who's going to make sure those things are done?
Hmm.
There's a lot of people, I've seen that, especially in our communities. Well, I'll just add my son to my checking account, or I'll add this to my checking account. Then they also have access to your money, right? So you may not necessarily want that. The same thing with deeds on the house.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my
Yeah.
dad, I remember after my mom passed, my dad, their house was paid off. He put me on the deed of his house
Wow.
until he remarried, right?
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily what you want to do too. And there's a thing called a ladybird deed,
Mm-hmm.
where the deed passes on upon death.
Mm-hmm.
Those type of things. Ladybird Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's different things to have in place. And then who's going to make the medical decisions? So that's your healthcare power of attorney is the one that can make the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put it this way. They can enact whatever decisions you have laid out in your medical directive.
Right.
So my medical directive says, hey, I don't want to be on life support.
Mm-hmm.
That's my medical directive. The healthcare power of attorney gives someone an authority to make that change, to take that action.
Right.
Directives tell them what action. The healthcare power of attorney gives them the power to carry out that action.
Right.
So very important things. Beneficiary, again, making sure those things are up to date. Many of you have heard me tell the story about paying $100,000 off to someone's ex-husband because she never changed her beneficiary.
Yeah.
New husband, kids, out of luck. All the money went to the ex-husband. So these are some of the things that you want to check. It's a good idea to do these checks on an annual basis. The other thing that I tell Michelle too is you don't necessarily need to do these things at the end of the year. I think doing them around your birthday is a great time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That comes up once a year, right? No, nobody has 2 birthdays, a year, but some of you celebrate your birthday for a week, but do it around your birthday because that's a great reminder. I need to check my beneficiaries, I need to check my life insurance. I need to do these things, not necessarily at the end of the year, but and maybe the correct thing is you do it at the end of the year and on your birthday, or you do it. Have a system where you're going by and checking these things out.
It's true.
So, hey, listen, you guys, I know that this show was a little bit different than our normal show, but we wanted to share this information with you in terms of if you're doing, your financial checkup. It's very important. And I wasn't able to see the chat, but I see a couple things in chat. Talking about the avalanche. April says, you pay less money in interest, and that's absolutely true. And Vixen, thank you for saying that this is good information. So this was the Real Money Coach tonight. So we gave you some solid things to go back and take a look at and review as you're doing your financial wellness checkup. I want to remind everyone to come back here same time next week on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And Marlon will be hosting. We will be doing wedding stuff. Michelle and I and her husband and my wife, we're all going to be together. Y'all should see us when we get together. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap, right? So, but Marlon will be here. And again, our guest will be Valerie Rhodes, and we're going to be giving you some information and tips to get you ready for taxes, for the tax season. So, and then the following week, I have a gentleman coming on. His name is Sean Caldwell. He's going to share his story. Amazing young man. And he'll share his story with us the following week. And then after that, y'all, we move into January. So 2022 is right around the corner. So we will see you guys. Remember the iHeartRadio show on Friday at 5 p.m. Tune in for that. You will see a posting. Most likely you'll get something in your email box, and you'll see it on social media, letting you as a reminder that the Real Money Coach will be on the air. So, Michelle, anything else you'd like to leave? with the group tonight?
No, just do your wellness check. Like, get prepared, get your ducks in a row. And, this will, we're here to give you information so you can take action. I was telling Tony a couple weeks ago, I'm like, we need to give them homework. That's the teacher in me. But
so we gave
your homework.
We gave them 8 assignments tonight.
I know that's,
right?
that's a lot of
we gave them
assignments.
8 of them, right?
Yeah.
Financial psychology. Hey, listen, if you want the printout of what we did go over tonight, those slides, just email at info@therealmoneycoach, and I'll attach it to the email and send it back to you.
Yeah.
And so if you want that information, let us know. I'll attach it. I'll send it back to you, and you can have that to do your wellness check. Yep. So with that, y'all, have a wonderful, great evening. Thank you for being with us, and we will see you on next Tuesday, Real Money Coach.